Aces, I can promise you that not all sunglasses are built the same. Rick's Eyewear is crafted for durability, clarity, and style that lasts. And we're so confident that we back ourselves with a 90-day free returns policy just in case they're not a perfect match. Use Aces for 20% off site-wide and find your fit right now at rickseyewear.com.au. Now let's get into the show. Welcome back, everyone. Another episode of Tommy Talks. This week, we are joined by a great man, someone that's ran around Australia. I don't think there's anyone else in the world that could even say this. Or maybe there's one. I think you broke the record, but whether he's alive or not, I'm not sure. But Shawnee Bell in the building, mate. Thank you so much for joining us. And I can't wait to dive in and understand how you did this. In what was 158 days, you did 13,383 kilometres, breaking the previous record by 11 days, averaging 84 kilometres a day. That's 2 marathons a day, everyone. Understand that, 84 kilometres. I can't even do 10 in a day without doing a calf. We're going to break it all down, but raising $277,000 for Make-A-Wish Foundation. That is awesome. Make-A-Wish Australia, that is. Outstanding stuff, mate. Congratulations, first of all. And yeah, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much, Tommy. Pumped to be here.
Mate, where do I start with this? Well, when did you wake up and say, I'm going to run around Australia?
Yeah, it's such a great question because I think, so many people being a young guy, it's like I'm only 27 now having done this. It obviously took years to prepare for, and I was a young, naive 20-year-old who just said, I'm going to have a crack at this. And it all sort of came about. I ran my first marathon, 2017, Melbourne Marathon, loved it and just got the bug and was like, there's got to be something great out there for me. And earlier that year, my mum had taken me to Tony Robbins' seminar, and I learned about this guy called Stu Middleman who ran across the US, and he ran 85K a day for 56 days in a row. And I was a local footballer at the time thinking that guy's a predisposed genetic freak. That's not possible. But I remembered he ran across the US. I thought, I wonder if anyone's ever run across or around Australia. Set the goal in early 2018 and then just reverse engineered the hell out of that goal.
Reverse engineered it, all right. What are we now? 2025. So 6 years later, you did it. So 2024, 158 days, I said?
Yeah.
Geez, where do I start? I need to really shape my first question. Day one, when you're taking off, where'd you take off from?
From the MCG.
Because that's where you finished, wasn't it? And you ran literally around Australia?
Yeah. Yeah, so I started the MCG day one. It was a 39-degree day. So I started there at 5 a.m. It's already 28 degrees, thinking, what are we doing here? And I ran up the East Coast as high as Townsville, across to Three Ways or near Tennant Creek, up to Darwin, then across to Broome, down to Perth, across to Coolgardie near Kalgoorlie, then further across to Adelaide, and then back to Melbourne. So, yeah, it was a big journey.
What was the coolest thing you saw along the way?
Oh,
we're obviously going to talk about the whole journey, but as my head just thinks of random things.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, did you run through Esperance?
No, actually didn't. Yeah.
Beautiful. So, I think it's Twilight Beach. I remember going there when I was at Freo and I was going, I've never seen anything so beautiful.
Yeah.
I just thought you might have ran around there. That's on the...
No, that's obviously on the south end. No, we didn't. So once I hit Perth, ran across to Coolgardie. But yeah, there was so much. It's hard to know, to be honest. Like, it sounds silly to say that, but when you're in it, you're obviously absolutely cooked because it was day after day. There were no rest days. I say 158 days, and I'll explain that. The world record is broken at 13,383 Ks, but to get back to the MCG from where I started was 166 days and just under 14,000 Ks. So I guess if you were to go run around Australia now, it's hard to get exactly the same roads. It's really hard to get the exact same distance. And so the record is broken at 13,383 because then it's a set distance no matter who you are, no matter what roads you take. Because if the next person has a crack in 10 years' time, the roads are going to be a little bit different again. And it goes back to Ron Grant, the very first person to run around Australia. It was 13,383 K back in 1983. So there's been a few people since him, but yeah, was able to achieve that milestone on day 159 and basically 158 days, 14 hours, 52 minutes. And then we celebrated. It was a huge thing. And then back onto it the next day and had to continue running to the G.
Crazy. I love running, so I understand the toll it takes on you. I'm actually good at it, but not that good. And you just got out of a moon boot.
Yeah.
Is that sustained injury from this run?
Yeah.
And is it a stress? It has to be a stress fracture, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, it was a stress fracture. That would have healed by now because I finished the run in August to mainland Australia. I actually went and did Tasmania straight afterwards.
I heard. I was trying to get you in the studio and he's like, he's doing another run. I said, this bloke's sick in the head. There's something wrong with this bloke.
Definitely not well. I was dropped on my head when I was a kid.
No, you weren't. You're a very resilient man and we'll talk about it.
But yeah, so that's sort of like I did have a stress fracture once I realised after the run, going into Tassie, I didn't know that. You're so locked in. I was dialed in what I was doing it for. I mentioned how I ran my first marathon and really got into running, but growing up, played footy, lost a teammate young. I was only 18 and losing a teammate young and they still don't know why. It obviously massively changed my life. Found myself running more and running was a real mental health outlet and it just became something that, I was really dedicated to doing. So I connected my running to purpose bigger than myself and it was to honour my mate. It was also to raise money for charity. And because he died so young and they don't know why, it ultimately taught me how precious life is. And if life is so short, we need to chase our dreams and help others chase theirs. So that's why I supported Make-A-Wish. There's a lot of people who ask, why that charity? And that's exactly why. It's like I had that real heartbreaking situation so young, but it also taught me how precious life is. And this running had helped me so much. It became a goal of mine. So I wanted to use that to help others. And that's sort of how it all came about.
Oh, well done. And sorry about the loss. That would be really tough as a young fellow. I'm sure you're really close with him. And I was going to ask that later on why you picked Make-A-Wish.
Yeah.
But you've just covered it. So, thanks for that. And just changing topics here, but I'll look at your build. You're not a skinny, like long-legged, I'm all arms and legs, right? So, but you're actually a solid, I look at you like an inside mid, you know what I mean? So you're a beast. Like normally blokes your build don't have the, the running capability. Yeah. When you look at them, you speak to these sports science guys, they do say that, there's certain types that can run, but you're a thicker kind of mold. So, I mean, I look at you and go, it's unbelievable what you've done.
Well, it's funny, Tommy. I think, I've got to be honest, as I said, finished early September. I've probably put on 10 kilos since the run.
But even running though, I watched your whole run and I'm like, you're not like it. When you see like a marathon runner, you watch the Olympics, 10,000 meter runners, they bones. They're just bones and a little bit of muscle. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you're not like that at all. And I just think, geez, you're just built differently. You are.
It is a very different build when you're trying to run fast. Obviously you need to be lean. And it's interesting, like now I'm an online running coach and I ran my fastest marathon at 73 kilos. Right now I'm sitting at 88. So it's a very different build. But I actually intentionally went into the run a little bit heavier, knowing that I needed to eat so many calories, it was going to fall off me. So that way I wasn't, when I did lose the weight, I wasn't at a dangerous weight that I wasn't going to be able to sustain for nearly 6 months. It was go in a little bit of a surplus, then get back to maintenance. And it worked really well.
Injury prevention is massive in this stuff. Were you doing I think of your calf raises and your Nordics and your hamstring, just doing all this injury prevention weight stuff while you're running, or did you just run the whole time?
Yeah, just run, honestly.
So did you do a lot of that building up?
Yeah, heaps.
You just built up the body strength-wise, but then you never did, like you see NBA players these days, they'll play a game, but they're in the gym straight away with a back-to-back the next night, just doing injury prevention, light weight training, because it's meant to be good for the body. But you're telling me you didn't do any of that the whole 158 days, 14 hours.
Zero, mate. I barely stretched. I was absolutely cooked. It's something that, it was a Shawnee shuffle, as I called it when I was out there. Like you can't be running fast when you're doing it day after day after day. And 2 marathons, the body will just, pack it in. So it was a slow run. Like, I think if we look at my fastest marathons, 2 hours 53, it's sort of low fours. Low 4 per K.
But low 4's not slow though. Like let's be. I'm losing my voice here almost because I'm rattled. But I'm just trying to say low 4s is fucking quick. Like I run with mates and they can't. Some of them can't run a low 4.
No, exactly.
So you're telling me you're Shawnee Shuffle my ass?
No. Sorry, no, I've confused you.
Shawnee Shuffle would have been 8 minutes.
Yes, that's right. It was more like 7 to 8 minutes a K.
Okay, that's more like.
That's what I was trying to say. Is like it's different when you're doing it day after day after day, and it really was that shuffle. Because you can't go quick.
You can't even lift your legs.
The body just goes, exactly. And like I realized before, I didn't even answer what you're saying about the foot. So it was a stress fracture initially, but I've got something called Freiberg's disease, which is basically in our foot, we have our metatarsal bones, and the metatarsal head is round. Mine has flattened due to so much trauma.
Oh, wow.
Insufficient blood supply to the bone from so much repeated impact. It's basically flattened, and now I've got to have a 4-foot reconstruction. So,
Jesus.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. Obviously, I didn't know that something so severe would come on the back of the run, but I'd be naive to think that nothing was going to happen and I was going to get away with it unscathed. So it is what it is, and I wouldn't change a thing. I'm glad I was able to do it.
And you filmed this whole thing, yeah?
Yeah, we did.
Are you doing a documentary on it?
We are, yeah.
I was going to say, because I don't think I think this deserves more clout. Like, I just don't. I think the doco will give it legs.
Yeah.
I think you could do a movie on this. I think you could do anything on this, really. To run around Australia and put yourself through what you did. I know there's the Ned Brockmans of the world, and what he's done's incredible. But watching what you've done is a bit different and kind of similar in the same sense. But I just thought, I reckon not enough people know your story and what you did, and I think the doco is a great idea.
Yeah, appreciate that, Tommy. We're hoping for and aiming for a August, September release, so it's 1 year on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And I'd imagine there's some bad scenes in terms of you. When did you lose your mind? You'd have to think
Probably day 2.
I was going to say, it has to be 84 a day.
Yeah.
You're almost losing your mind. 39-degree heat to start. What a stinker.
And 2 days in a row, 39. So it was Labor Day weekend last year, and obviously a lot of AFL fans listen to your pods. So to give a bit of perspective, I started in the opening round. There was a Sunday of opening round, and I finished on the Thursday night heading into round 24.
Oh,
so
man,
I was
full AFL season run around Australia.
Yeah, didn't miss a day.
You're a big Tigers man, aren't you?
Big Tigs man,
so you didn't miss, mate.
Mate, it's the right year to run around.
Well, actually. You've had your success, and then you've gone, the boys are cooked, I run around Australia. Oh, well done. Well done.
So no, it was such a long time, but day 2 I was cooked, and it's funny looking back and saying that, because obviously 2 39-degree days in a row. I went in underdone too. I mean, I say there's 6 years of prep, but I actually 8 weeks out had a stress fracture in my tib and had to get up for it. So that was really hard. Obviously, you do something like this, you're getting support from, I had some sponsors chip in, I had support crew who'd taken annual leave to come around the country with me as a volunteer. I couldn't change the date, and I was committed to this. So I had to try and get myself up for it. It was bloody tough, but by the time day 1 and day 2 came around, it was really trying to condition my body as I went. And it wasn't until about 2 or 3 weeks in where I felt in a lot more of a rhythm. I'd lost a little bit of weight, and I was feeling good, and was able to maintain that from there. So, you touched on strength training. That was such a huge part of my journey leading in. And I think people underestimate that in the long distance running world. You need to be durable, especially if you're trying to do it day after day after day.
Oh, well said. And can we talk about your team before we just keep diving into everything? But I've got 2 questions here on the top of my brain. It's the amount of money that needs to go into this just so you can get through. So I'd love you to touch on that secondly. But the team, who was involved in the team? I see, there's a few people on the bus, but you obviously represented a lot of brands on your shirt. And just would love to know who gave up their time and well-earned cash to support a great cause.
Definitely. Look, we had 32 crew members over the journey, so that's huge. And that's what I mean, like, this had happened. Here I am 7-8 weeks out with a tib stress. And thinking,
that would be the worst, mate.
It was, but I couldn't change it because people had obviously submitted their annual leave requests, well in advance. And
so you've run this with a cracked tib pretty much?
Well, by the time day 1 came around, my running was so limited leading in. I was working so closely with a physio to make sure I was still hitting, off-running conditioning. So I was
What were you doing, bike?
Bike, ski erg, and that was pretty much it. Like
just pure cardio, no running. It might have done you a favour.
But I was doing a lot of weights too. I still had to do weights around it to keep the rest of the body strong. So
what weights were you doing just quickly while you were running?
I was still doing, heavy deads and stuff like that. Like it was really tough, but just trusting what he was telling me to do. So I had to pump a lot of calf raises. I just had to get as strong as I possibly could.
How many calf raises did you get to?
Mate, I'm not sure. Yeah. We were going heavy single leg, like a real.
You on Smith machine?
Nah, what does he use? My physio had like just the leg extensions machine, but you can set it up for calf raises off that as well.
Okay, yeah.
So heavy seated calf raises, and mate, it was definitely an uncomfortable spot to be in. But yeah, coming back to your question, obviously realized how much people had put into it, and their time. Some of the great sponsors, as you said, chipped in, and they're basically coming together for this vision that I've tried to reverse engineer for 6 years. And so I had a range of sponsors, including Apollo, who gave us a motorhome for 6 months. Had Run the World, who is a running app to help people with their running. A range of sponsors, so many who contributed to the journey. But then obviously key people who basically gave up different stints. So I had to organise it where it was like Melbourne to Sydney crew, Sydney to Brisbane crew, Brisbane to Townsville, and so on.
Wow. So you're running the show as well. And did you have anyone with you the whole time?
I didn't have anyone, no, not for the full time. But yeah, I had one guy from Melbourne all the way to Broome, which was a long stint, but most people were sort of 4 weeks at a time.
And how many in the crew? Like, what's the max you could have at one time?
The max I had was actually 5 crew, and that felt too much. We sort of found a sweet spot with me and 4 crew because we always had 2 motorhomes. And this was something that, again, you talk about like preparation for this. It's not just training, but it was also logistics. And in 2022, as a rehearsal run, I ran from Cairns-to-Melbourne for Make-A-Wish as well. So that was a run to raise as much money as we could for Make-A-Wish, but also to learn what I needed to do with this run around Oz because this was the number one priority. And I learned from that how much I needed a second vehicle because that second vehicle was like someone could drive ahead towards the end of the day, start cooking dinner. That way I could run until dark, until I was completely done, empty the tank every single day, hop in the car, get to where we were staying and dinner was sorted. So there were so many things that went into this run and sort of 3-4 people at a time.
Wow, I can visualise that one van just taking off, preparing the meal, but going, geez, we might have to pick up because you've got to stop 5K earlier.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I'm kind of speechless because I don't think many people could even do 2 days.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had 2 days. And even like the logistics of it, I didn't realise it was, you didn't have someone there the whole time, which would be a challenge. Do you feel like eating after a big day of running or you're starving?
It's something where, like, again, it's not your typical running, doing something like this because if you're not eating as you go, you're not eating enough during the day too, you're going to fade away. You're going to develop other bone stress injuries or you're going to just not have the energy to be able to achieve the goal. So I had to work closely with a dietitian and ultimately work towards this to be able to make sure that I was eating enough. Every single day I was burning close to 10,000 calories a day. So I had to get, nearly 10,000 calories in. And so it changed as I went in terms of when I was up in the hot parts of Australia like Darwin, I found myself having 8 cans of soft drink a day, 2 liters of ice cream, and Ben & Jerry's just, really high calorie ice cream. And then in the southern parts of Australia, like the Nullarbor, more so apple pies with whipped cream and stuff like that. So
you're eating that shit?
I had to. Yeah,
really?
I had to, which was hard. I mean, I was eating good food as well. You still want some nutrients, but at the same time, it's all calories. And that's probably why I was on all fours spewing a lot of the days as well.
Yeah, because you've got to get it straight in, don't you? I mean, It doesn't really matter. They say it doesn't really matter what you eat. You just got to get something in because your body's just going, give me some fuel.
Yeah, so I spoke about the 2 motorhomes. Like basically what we did was we always had one that was leapfrogging me. So, I talk now as a keynote speaker about breaking down your big goals, and you can reverse engineer something as big as a run around Australia into 1,816 pit stops. And what I mean by that is we basically had the car or the motorhome go 8K at a time. And every 8K, I would grab something to eat and drink and then continue running another 8K, another 8K. And then that was how I got the 84Ks done every single day because, if I'm only thinking 84K, then that's a nightmare. That's so hard. And breaking it down mentally, logistically, and also physically for the body is what made it happen.
It wouldn't be easy just volunteering for this. Like it wouldn't be easy just driving that car slowly around and waiting for you all day and watch you throw up and clean you up and like it'd be tough, wouldn't it?
Oh, definitely, mate.
Not saying your job's the hardest by an absolute mile, but it's pretty kind what they did and they volunteered and I'm sure you got a pretty close bond with all them after that.
Definitely. And I think for the listener to imagine you're confined to 84Ks or so of space a day. Like that's really all you're doing. Just leapfrog, you wait, you set up some food and you go to the next one. So, that's then the second vehicle might have been used to go and get groceries or something like that. There were people doing something at all times. It was a huge team effort, and that's why I always give credit to the team, because it was that. And of course, even logistically with planning, we had to make sure that what I always tried to do where possible was have at least one crew member stay on a little bit longer than the others that have to go home. So there was a handover. So that might have been, if you were crewing, Tommy, you're staying on at Gold Coast when some other mates have gone home, and then you'll fly out at the sunny coast. And so that worked really well to be able to make sure that the mission could continue. Everyone knew their role, and I was cooked just trying to get through the running. So it really was a team who had to sort of share those roles with the other team members as well. And yeah, someone else was always driving someone to the airport or was picking up groceries or whatever it was.
Wowie. Before I get you to break down a full day, I want you to break down day 50, just because you're right in the thick of it, you're hurting, and it's like just I want the start to the finish, just so people, but before we get there, just tell me about sleep. What were you getting, because you're obviously going to talk about that in a second when you do the full day, but are you just eating and then straight to sleep?
Pretty much.
And when you wake up, like how much sleep were you getting?
I tried to be in bed for about 8 hours.
I was going to say 8 hours is the key, I reckon, but you don't normally get that, do you?
No, but we really went into it with strategy. Like, one of the biggest things that has helped me over the journey is finding coaches and mentors. And, I passionately share that because I couldn't have done that without these people, including Dave Alley, who's the record holder before me, helped me out for 6 years.
Oh, what a weapon.
Yeah, mate, amazing human. But one of the things that I learned from another guy, Chris Turnbull, who's the fastest to run across Australia. He ran from Perth to Sydney in, I think, 38, 39 days. And Chris Turnbull shared with me how what worked for him is, and he was doing 100 Ks a day because it was a shorter run. He was doing 13 hours of running per day, and then he would have an hour from when he woke up to get started, and he'd have 2 hours from when he finished to basically eat, shower, stretch, do what he needed to do to get to bed. So if you think about that, 1 hour in the morning before you start, 13 hours of running time, 2 hours at the end, that's 16 hours, leaves 8 hours in bed. So he told me there's going to be days where you have good days and bad days. Don't be so fixed on it being 84K.
Every day.
Try and work on hours. And if you can do that, you'll achieve the goal. And really make sure, like, as you go, you're obviously going to get better systems. Ideally, if it can be less than an hour from waking up to running, awesome. And if it can be less than 2 hours from finishing to bedtime, awesome. But really always try and leave that 8 hours in bed, and that worked so well. So
that's great. It's awesome that they're helping you out, because some people, they don't want you to break their record, but the fact that they're helping you, and that tip, it's massive. Like running to time versus running to Ks, it could have been the difference between you finishing it.
Mate, it's so true. And there were days where you are flying, like not flying in terms of running fast, but just feeling awesome. And it didn't make sense. I remember my fastest day, or one of the fastest days and just best day, was day 106. And everyone's like, how are you doing that? And I said, I don't know. I had Phil Gore come and join me, who's one of Australia's best ultra runners. I was probably excited and thought, this is sick. Let's run together and run a bit quicker. But yeah, you have really good days and you have awful days. Indescribable, because they are just so hard, where I'm on all fours throwing up with blood coming out of my nose at the same time. And you honestly have to break it down in those moments to one step at a time. You can't even think on those days 8K at a time, because it is so hard. And so on those days, my mission was always just get to at least 80K, but still work off that time. And then there were other days where it was, more so 88Ks or 91Ks a day.
What was the worst day you had in terms of kilometres? We'll get to that stuff later on. But
well, the smallest day wasn't the worst day, just because the last day I finished, I was around sort of Werribee, so then I had to run 39K to the G on the last day. But the smallest day outside of that was 70K. I really
didn't have a day off.
Nah, I still, and that was day 125, and that day broke me. I'm sure those who watch the doco when it comes out will see that, because, I obviously, to get to a point of running around Australia, I've held myself to an incredibly high standard to make this happen. And I worked off the fact that no matter what, I want to hit 80K a day. There's going to be good days. There's going to be bad days. Some days I can hopefully hit nearly 90, and other days will be 84 average, but just hit 80K every single day. And day 125 was the first day my body was just like, you are not hitting 80K. And the emotion just came out of me, because this was a smaller goal within the big goal, but it was still, I said, no matter what, that's the standard. You're hitting 80K a day, and I couldn't do it. So that day was a tough one.
I can only imagine you breaking down. I mean, what's that, 125 in?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, it's just unbelievable. Break me down a day, because I feel like if I'm people watching this and listening to this, I want to kind of make sure that I'm crafting all these questions in the right way. But I think it would do us justice if you could just break down a full day.
Yeah.
And I'll start coming over the top and asking a few more questions. But again, what you've done is incredible. And we're going to get, you're obviously raising more funds. We're going to get this in the show notes. So everyone listening, in the show notes, if you want to donate, because we're going to support you and help you out. But I cannot, I'm so excited to talk to you about this. That's why I said to you in the lift, I said, I'm not asking any questions yet, mate. I've got 1,000. I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
But the reason I ask you, break down, day 100 or whatever it is, because you must be in severe pain, or as you said, the body might start to feel a bit better. But I just want to know the details around a full day. So can you just tell me and try break it down to the details? I'm talking what you're eating, what the person's doing, who the person is, that name them, give them a shout out. I want to know absolutely every detail for a full day as you wake up and what time it is. Go.
I'm going to use, let's say that day 125 that was so brutal where I hit 70.
Yep.
I know there were bigger days, but so day 122 is when I reached Perth. So I've already run up all the East Coast, across up to Darwin, and then across to Broome, down to Perth. Now I'm heading back home, heading east. And it was such a good feeling to be coming home. But that was when my body started to really pack it in. And so I wake up, let's say 5 o'clock. We did shift it, like up north, it was maybe more so 4 to get started earlier because of the heat. And then at times start, more so 5:36, a little bit later, but usually awake at 5. And by that point, the reason I use that as an example as well, I'd had that crew for a while. So the crew who were with me on, say, day 125 had been with me since Broome, or a lot of them had. Mitch was one of those people with me for about 40 days at that time. So he's woken me up. Obviously, we would sleep in a caravan park or just on the side of the road in a campground, wherever we could. One of the biggest things for me was to try and always stay as close as possible to where I finished, because obviously how it works is you spray the ground, you get the GPS coordinates, you know that is the end of day 124, and that's where you must start from day 125. So this could have just, and this was many of the times, been just a random spot on the A1. And so we would always try and stay as close to there as possible. Mitchie's woken me up in the motorhome at 5 a.m., shaking me awake, saying, come on, mate, get up. You got to get moving. The crew would always organize my clothes the night before. So basically, the attention to detail with everything was so elite. I had my day bag, and in my day bag was all my clothes that I needed to basically roll out of bed and get dressed. From there, I would eat breakfast, often while we were driving to that start line. So we're trying to save as much time as we possibly can. We get to the start line. It varied. I would have, I found myself couldn't eat too much initially, but usually it was something like Cocoa Pops or Milo cereal. And then I also, on the days I wanted to eat a little bit better, probably for some more sustained energy, with things like just a bagel with honey and banana. So it really did change, as I said, depending on where I was. But there's so much happening. Like I've gotten dressed, brushed my teeth. I'm now eating breakfast while we're driving to the start line. My feet are so cooked that I've got one of the boys, we shouldn't be doing this while we're moving in the motorhome, but we were, putting my socks on, getting me ready, because I'm so cooked that I don't have the flexibility or even the strength to be able to put my own socks on. So unless I was laying back on the bed, maybe the only exception, I was that fatigued early in the mornings. They're putting my socks on, putting my swollen feet into shoes and saying, all right, let's go. Here we go again. I'd basically stand up once we'd parked on the side of the A1 for where we were meant to go. I would put on my running belt, which is, what you hold around your hips to carry whatever you need, my bum bag. In the bum bag was always, a range of things. There was wet wipes if nature called out on the side of the A1. There were I'd usually start with a running gel or two. I could carry my 500 ml water flask. So we'd always had certain things with me, no matter what, for that 8K or so. And I get started, and basically I'm there at the paint, and I'm talking to the camera saying, we're here. It's start of day 125. At that point, it's probably 5:40 a.m. And I can barely get my words out. I'm exhausted, but just talking about what it's all for. Please donate if you can. And off I go. and I take that first step and mate, it was a real like shuffle at the start. There were days at the start where I had to walk the first few hundred meters because my body was so inflamed, so sore, I could not run no matter how much I tried. If anyone wants to look at the Strava, you'll see the first few K of every day where, especially at that point in the early 120s, 10, 11 minutes, my body should not have been able to get up and run another 80, 84K day, but you just fight. And that's what I found myself doing. Like it really was breaking it down as the team was supporting me, breaking the goal down. And we realized very quickly into the run that my starts were the worst. I found the mornings the hardest and I would get better as the day goes. Naturally, the sun comes up, you get a bit of caffeine into you start to feel a little bit better. And so the first break was always sort of 5, 6K. And I would just plonk myself into a chair on the side of the highway, smash a coffee, usually a Panadol Extra, and keep going.
Coffee is in what, like a little espresso?
Yeah, just whatever the crew could get. Like obviously, depending on where we were, it was often just your Nescafe that they've made up with boiling water. But obviously, if we were through a town, then a proper coffee. It just depended.
And you could stomach that?
I had to. Yeah, I found myself so fatigued that the caffeine really helped at that point. It was just so hard and. My body got going as the day, I guess, came up. And that was one of the biggest things for me is just leave it all out there every single day. You've got such an amazing support crew giving up their lives. So you need to fucking leave nothing in the tank and go every day. And so, I was probably running from 5:40 until anywhere from 7 to 8 p.m. The better days, I might have finished around 7, but there were days where I was running till 8, 8:30 because obviously depended on when I started. And so my total running time were anywhere from 12 to 14 and a half hours. So that's what I mean. It was not fast, but it was just 12 to 14 and a half hours every single day in, day out with broken feet, like literally broken feet. I didn't realize I had the...
You feel them every step?
Freibergs. Yeah, every step.
You got music in years?
Yeah, I had a range of things. I had music sometimes, even podcasts sometimes. I had no music sometimes. I want to obviously enjoy it while I was out there with the wildlife. But then that would get hard because of the road trains as well. But it's funny, I used to be probably more into house music than anything. As soon as I hit Townsville, I just became this country guy. Yeah, it made sense with where I was running. But now
Luke Combsy's in town. You going to Luke Combs on Friday? That's beautiful.
I am, and now he's my favorite artist.
Yeah, right.
Like it's just crazy. You do this run, you're out there in nature. And I remember Dave Alley saying to me, who was my mentor and the guy who held the record before me, he said to me, when you hit Townsville, and so you've run up the East Coast, you hit Townsville and then you head west, you'll either thrive or you'll really struggle there. So, obviously a lot of that is a mindset, be prepared for it. But he said that if you can enjoy just being out there very much on your own, you're going to love it. And out there, I would see a road train every 10 minutes. It was just me on the highway. You're seeing all cattle as you're running along. And you had to find beauty in the nothingness. And that's what it was. And I just found myself listening to Cairnsy and now he's my favorite artist.
So good. And you got so much time. So you're probably listening to a lot of their music and falling in love with all kinds of music, really.
Definitely.
Now, let's just go back a little bit. And I only do this because I want to go, you kind of touched on the 8K and you sat down and had a coffee. 8K is, I'm not normally all right at maths, but it's almost like a tenth, it's a tenth of the way. So there's a lot of running still to go. So you're on the road, you're running 12 to 14 hours. Yeah. When's the next stop? Like, is it a chunk of 16K? Like, what's your next? No. I just want to know how you did a day, and then we can obviously work.
That's good.
As you said, we can kind of bring it backwards. But every day doing this is just crazy.
Yeah, and mate, it's great to go into such detail because like no one's ever asked for that full breakdown.
I want the detail, brother. I want it.
So day, whatever day it was, that as I said, that
124 or whatever you said.
Yeah. That first, like every day, it didn't matter. The morning was so hard. The first little bit. So usually 5 to 6K, I would stop, have a coffee, try and get some food down because I struggled when I first woke up, and I'd found that. So obviously you learn as you go. And earlier on, I would smash something heavier and I'd spew in the first few steps.
I'm the same as you, by the way. With even just doing a normal run, I just try to run on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
But you'd need some energy as well.
That's it. So I needed a little bit to get me going, but then it was have that break around 5-6K, smash a coffee, try and have some food. Usually, it obviously depended which crew member was with me, but we're talking that day 125, I would have had Mally with me, and Mally made this famous Mally stack. So that was like a bagel with egg, hash brown, cheese, barbecue sauce, spinach, mushroom, just the works, tomato. So again, high calories early. And that's when you're doing something like I was doing and you're so fatigued, it was really calories that were getting me through. And calories and caffeine. I always say to people, like, they say, how do you run around Australia? I'm like, passion and caffeine. And that's what it was. And
you ever had the military gum? You tried that?
No, I haven't. No.
Oh, right. You should have told me. When I was at the Giants, they introduced, well, not introduced, it's everywhere, but it's military gum. It's just chewing gum with heaps of caffeine in it.
Yeah.
So in the Arvos, when we're cooked in pre-season, you just smack one of them before gym, and it just start to. It wouldn't do much more than just make you feel normal. But when you're so fatigued,
of course,
you come alive a bit, and then you start sweating, and you kind of get your second wind.
That's
always
cool.
around that 3 o'clock mark on the Arvo when you're starting to just fall off the cliff.
Yeah,
you would have loved them because no liquid, just straight in the guts, caffeine. Let's go.
I would have loved that. Yeah, so like that 6K mark, and then I'm going, and then the next one was usually anywhere from 7 to 8. And again, I'm having some more high calories. I found that I couldn't eat as much as the day went on. So again, everything was different. I was slower in the mornings, but I had to try and eat more and almost front end the day. So 7 or 8K, I've had something else, which again, it varied. It might have been a can of Coke and I don't know, like a chicken burger. It could be anything. Crew making anything. I get going again, and then the next one might not have been something so heavy. It might have been a Gatorade and a banana or something.
These are all
like
8K, 10K interval?
About 8K at a time. Yeah. And I tried to obviously eat on the move as well. So it really depended. There was certain things that the crew would make and I just couldn't get it down. So that always sucked when they put their hard work into it and I couldn't get it down. But heaps of chalky milk as well because it's quick and it's calories. So it really depended on how I was feeling, and at the end of the day, I needed to try and hit. We worked off 500 to 600 calories an hour. We tried to do. If you think about it, if I'm running for 12 to 14 hours and you're hitting 500 calories an hour, you're sort of getting that 7,000 through the day there. So it was a lot of calories, but that's just when I'm running, and then I would always have my biggest meal at the end of the day. So. Yeah, in terms of we would break every 8K. Sometimes it was very much grab and go, and other times it was actually sit down. It could have been last night's leftovers of chicken and rice and veggies because, of course, I needed nutrients as well, and I found that on the Nullarbor when I wasn't getting good quality food in, fruit and veggies, and I had to resort to more just quick things that were high calorie like snack packs. Mate, I really struggled because, of course, it's calories, but you just…
Quick fix, isn't it?
You're not hitting those macros and you're really struggling with all the other micronutrients that you need. And it was really hard. Like I really struggled in some of those areas. So basically breaking it down 8K at a time was how I got around the country. And then I'd get to the end of the day, try and have a massive meal, whatever the crew have prepared. A lot of the time that was things just like pasta, pizza, and a protein shake. And within the protein shake is a whole tub of Ben & Jerry's. So again, we try and when I was running, it was more front load through the day as I struggled in the afternoons when I still had to keep running. And then at the end of the day, have a huge hit of…
Little treat at the end, little Ben & Jerry's. I mean, you'd enjoy that. At least you got something to, earn something at the end of the day.
Yeah, I don't know, like Cairns-to-Melbourne 2022, that was a really good learning experience. I did 60 days, 4,000 Ks. It was about 66 Ks a day, not 84. But I really struggled with food on that. I lost 8 kilos in that run. And I remember just feeling so nervous coming into this run around Australia thinking the food's going to be the hardest part. Like I struggled then and now I've got to run further. So I've got to get more in. But I think my body was just so depleted and so cooked that it honestly wasn't as big of a battle as I thought it would be. It was just get anything in.
Did you have a doctor with you?
We didn't, but I did chat to my doctor on the phone a bit throughout. Yeah.
I was going to say, I was starting to think that you'd almost need one. Do you do any tests along the way just to make sure, or you just kind of no, I need to get through this?
Nothing during. And, I had obviously a lot of allied health professionals following me and saying, mate, what are you doing? Like there was a period where it was quite hot. It would have been Northern Territory and then through the Pilbara of WA as well, where I was just nosebleeds every day. And they're like, there's something going on. You've got to get it looked at. I'm like, I don't have time. Like I'm in this and I'm not stopping.
The nosebleeds would be concerning.
Yeah.
Although, do you normally get a running blood nose?
And that's where it was a little bit more scary because I don't normally. But
what did they put that down to? Did you ask someone?
Well, I think it was just the heat because like everyone had different opinion. But once I got further south, it wasn't really an issue anymore. I had the occasional nosebleed across the Nullarbor and stuff like that, but it wasn't like it was further up. And so I put that down to, of course, you can see that it's a 34, 35 degree day, but no one else is on the tarmac for 12, 14 hours a day. So it was the heat coming through my body that I feel was the hardest part. Like these roads as well. And I do believe it's why my left foot is cooked. My right foot today is fine. But my left foot is the one with the Freiberger, the flattened metatarsal head. One thing that people don't realise is obviously a lot of Australia, the national highway is built with a camber. So it's on an angle. And that's because it's for trucks and cars. It's not for runners. And ultimately, they have to build these roads, these highways on a bit of an angle to wash off the water in heavy rainfall. So when you're running on that, basically I had to always, or most of the time, run into the traffic for safety so I could see the cars.
Did that as well. Yeah, you always run with them. You don't want to know what's going on behind you. Yeah,
exactly. I wanted to see road trains coming at me. I wanted to see cars. I wanted to, because then if you needed to, you could hop off, and then get back on. But ultimately, like because of that and the angles, my left foot was always sitting a bit higher than my right foot. So my left foot's just copping it all the time. And that's why that left foot is just so broken compared to the right.
Is that going to get fixed or is that forever?
Yeah, like I need a 4-foot reconstruction. I believe that with Freiberg's disease, it never properly heals, but I'll be able to run again. He's told me, my 4-foot surgeon said to me that there's things that they can do. They can put in like an orthotic to offload that. It's basically the ball of my foot is just really cooked now, and I might need to change my strike to be less aggressive on the 4-foot to more of a midfoot strike, stuff like that. I can retrain my biomechanics and I'll be okay. I think the biggest thing I said to him is just like, mate, will I get back out there? Like this is more for my mental health than anything. And he said, absolutely, you'll be okay. And so however long it takes, like I sit here now and yeah, it sucks, but mate, what a journey.
Oh yeah, what a journey. Well, I mean, I'm going to ask you later, but do you have any aspirations to do something like that again, or are you kind of content with it?
No,
you're going to go again?
No, not around Oz. I loved it, but we spoke about some of the other factors as well, like the money to do the run, taking time off work for 6 months, not earning an income for 6 months, not being away from loved ones. Like it's a lot, and I think I've really learned from this experience. I loved it, but something shorter, more condensed would be the way to go.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think that is the go. Yeah, I mean, you've already done it. You don't have to do it again, but you might be able to help the next bloke.
Definitely. And I think that, you can still get like all of those feelings that you love as an ultra runner, putting yourself in that hurt locker, even if it's a week long or 2 weeks long or whatever it is. So to be honest, I don't have that thing yet. I don't know what it will be, but I know there'll be something one day because the fire's always still inside of me.
Geez, you blokes are built differently. I tell you what, you and Brockman, there's something about, it's unbelievable. It is, and honestly is. It's pretty special to be sitting next to you and talking about it, because I don't know if I have ever had this chat with someone about anything, for so long. And I see you wearing the Hockers. Is that the choice of shoe? I'm a Nike man at the moment, but what runners were you wearing when you were running around?
I actually wore Ultra around Oz, which a lot of do you know Ultra?
Nah, but I'm thinking it's obviously to do with the ultra running.
Yeah, it's a wider shoe. So basically your feet swell so much doing something like this. I like the wide toe box when you're doing something like that. I'm usually a size 13. I had to go to a 14 and a 14 wide. So Ultra shoes were great, but right now I'm in them only, to be honest, only because of this 4-foot. I've just got out of the boot. He's given me a cortisone injection the other day in the foot and said, mate, if you're in a bit of pain and having issues after 12 weeks in a moon boot, we need to get you into surgery. You might as well just enjoy it for the next little while until I can get in. When
did you lose your shit? Like your mind? Your mind would go first, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
What day? Be honest. Got to be 2.
Yeah, day 2.
Yeah.
To be honest, day 2.
Did you just snap at someone?
Yeah, no, I never snapped at anyone. I think I just had to keep it all within. It was hard. I would yell and do what I needed to do if I was running by myself, but it was never at someone. And I think that no matter how much I was hurting, I always had that perspective.
That's
of
awesome.
Everyone's given up time, and I would never do that. So It really was that team effort, and I made that clear. But day 2, I just remember thinking 2 days in a row, it was, so that day, because it was 39 degrees the second day in a row, I started running at 4 a.m. So for anyone who wants to look back, I've still got the highlights on my Instagram. You can see day 2, and I kick off at 4 a.m. It's going to be a hot day, so here we go. And I've spewed 3 times by 5:30 a.m. So at that point, I'm thinking, how the fuck am I going to do this? I'm, trying to get anything down, and the only thing really that I could get down that day was cans of Coke. So again, when your body is so depleted, and what it would have been as well was heat stroke or heat exhaustion from the day before.
I was going to say, we haven't spoken about hydration yet, but we'll talk about that after this.
Because I never really felt, I felt sick on pretty much every single day, but I never felt as bad as that day 2. It was so hard for so many factors. I got smarter as I went. I should have known this from the get-go, but, as I went and I was further north, I was in, the sun sleeves, I was covered up, I had the wide hat, I had everything to look after my skin, versus at the start, I was in Melbourne, I was just having a crack and didn't really know what I was doing.
Trying to get the old Jackie Chan.
Yeah, exactly right. So, here I was, and day 2, I've had 8 cans of Coke, and I can't get food down, and you need the energy. And yeah, so day 2, my mind was going crazy, and I really had to just break it down. And so we spoke about 8K at a time, but it was always one day at a time. It's how I had to do it. I think when you tackle something so big, one day at a time is key. And the preparation for this run, I went to the point of, in my motorhome right next to my bed was a massive poster of the MCG. And we had, with the motorhome and how it looked, was one of those ones that would expand. So as as you're driving around, as the crew were driving around through the day, it's like this, and then it would get wider at night. And so basically, as the motorhome would open up, I would see the MCG as I was laying there at night, and I was like, a reminder, that's where I'm heading. And then it would close, and I use that as like a metaphor for my mind that, okay, now we focus on day 125 or whatever it is.
Far out. It's day 2 when you're hurting. I could just imagine being in that moment going, I've got another 156 of these to go.
Yeah, and so many people said that. I had a mate who said, he's like, just seeing you day 2, I was thinking, Shawnee's run from, what would have it been? I think the MCG to Terrell going to come in. He always jokes to this day, I was going to pick you up and you were done. But day 2 it was tough.
What was the coolest place you ran past that you could shine some light on the town? Maybe 2 things. Who was the town that you felt the most energy from? Because there's a few that ran with you.
Yeah.
And also, just the coolest thing you saw along the way.
I think the Kimberley region is stunning, and a lot of people in Australia don't get there. So that's sort of just over the WA Northern Territory border. And it makes sense that a lot of people from Melbourne, Sydney don't really get there. It's very remote. But if you can get there, go. It's just stunning.
What are you looking at?
Well, I guess one thing to make really clear is so many people have said to me, how beautiful is the West Coast? So running down Australia, I'm like, mate, I was on the A1. Yeah. So I couldn't really see that much.
Not running around the coastline, are you?
Yeah, I was never on the coastal roads. I was always on the A1. So therefore, even on the A1, the Kimberley was beautiful. You've got the mountain ranges right there. Just absolutely stunning. Love that so much. I probably had the most community support in terms of people coming to run with me out of Perth. That was just incredible. Perth and Sydney. I knew some more people in Sydney. But yeah, to be able to be 122 days in when I hit Perth and then have a lot of people come run with me was nice because I needed that kick. I was definitely, my body started to pack it in. And that was probably what was so hard mentally because, I spoke about that standard of trying to hit 80K a day no matter what. But all of a sudden where I could hit before 84K days or 88K days in 12 and a half hours, was now taking 14 and a half hours for 80. So my body was really struggling. I was slowing down and it was just like I had no energy anymore. And, at what point is the body going to say I've had enough? So, I got a lot of support from the community throughout and that was huge. But I think in terms of just the beauty of Australia, there were so many great places, but the Kimberley and then also around the Nullarbor, the Great Australian Bight. Absolutely stunning. It was, I'm running there and you're sort of 20, 30 meters from the cliff is the A1. So you can just see the edge of Australia. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's mint. That is cool. That's awesome when people, I'd imagine you get a fair kick when people are running next to you.
Yeah.
Because it probably just distracts your mind a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk about people in the office listening to this or anyone out there with a goal. What's the little man saying to you on the shoulder consistently? What was the one thing that just the darkness, because it's natural, the negative thought? Was it the stop doing this? Was it, or maybe you are sick? Like, what was the one thing that you constantly felt you were like, nah, like you just had to keep fighting that one thought in your brain?
Probably the biggest sort of fear I had throughout it and that negative thought that kept coming back was like, what am I truly doing to my body? Because when you're in it and nothing was going to, I was never going to quit. I was all in. But you do realize, like, when you're throwing up and you're pouring out blood out your nose at the same time, like, that's not healthy, and you're doing it day after day. And it was literally like I was that strong-minded that it was just grab some wet wipes, wipe my mouth, have a quick drink, and off you go again. Like, I had to. I was in it. And so when that was happening, that was really scary. I didn't know what was going on with my body. And I guess, couple that with the pain in my foot. I really had some left foot pain since Northern Territory. And basically, I couldn't afford a podiatrist and a doctor and physio to be with me the whole way around Australia. So I had to wing it. And that was, I had crew tape my foot every day. So basically, I tried to try and create some space between my foot and the ground because it was so sore and so inflamed that I was taping my foot to get through every single day. So that gave it a little bit of a reprieve. It was tough. Like, I knew it was going to be tough. It's all part of it. But I think when you talk about that little man on the shoulder, that was the biggest concern of all. But I just reminded myself every single day, everyone asks you, what's your self-talk like? And self-talk is a big thing. But self-talk, in my experience at least, comes from the work that you've already done. And I reminded myself of one particular race in particular. I did a 200 miler in 2023. So that's 323 Ks as a race. For those who don't know.
Straight?
So, yeah, 323 K straight. I had a couple of naps.
You're a sick unit.
Yeah, I had a couple of naps. But 323
Ks, Harrow. I mean, what are we doing over here? I went for 9 last night and was proud of myself. Hey?
Yeah, I mean, it took me
323 Ks.
Yeah, so it took me 53 hours, 21 minutes, and it was a race in Brisbane or Queensland from
How many
Ipswich.
people do this stuff?
There were 6 in that race.
It can't be a lot of people doing this.
There's hundreds that do the 100 miler, very few do the 200 because it's just so far. But yeah, I ran from Ipswich to Yarraman and back. But I remember at Yarraman, so that's a 100-mile mark, throwing up. Like, just my body was, I was completely cooked. And I remember telling myself, just get back out there. Like, you'll be okay. Just break it down as you have to with all these things. And anyway, I went on and I ran strong through that next 100 miles and went on to win that race. And there were only 6 people in it, as I said, but the confidence that run in particular gave me, knowing that I was 100 miles in and I'm throwing up, thinking I'm done, to go out there, run another 100 miles and then win that race. So when I was 20K in and I'm on all fours bleeding and, spewing, it was a reminder that if you ran 100 miles and you got through that, or you've been in this position before, what's 100? That was 100 miles, 160K. You've only got to do another 60. So it was little mind games like that. And it really, the self-talk just came from knowing I've done the work.
It's so big, isn't it? Knowing you've done the work was something that we'd always go back to. And knowing you haven't done the work is when you'd go, oh, this is foreign territory.
Yeah,
that's when you get really nervous about your body because it's like you're building it back up after an injury, for example.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, it's incredible stuff. It really is. I'm just thinking of my next question here because I'm listening too much. I'm meant to be thinking about the next question, and I'm just mesmerised by the performance. I just can't get over 200 miles. 200 miles, Harry. Like, I'm just thinking. How many people in Australia would do that? You reckon? What's like?
I don't know. There's maybe a handful of 200-mile races in Australia now. There's actually a 300-miler in the US this year. Like.
Jesus
Everyone is,
Christ.
I mean, what do they say? Ultra runners is just people who are not well in the head and go and take on these massive challenges. So, I think running has always been a huge part of my life, but I just fell in love with the process, the journey, and wanted to run further and further. And I think that the biggest advice that I have for anyone who's, an up-and-coming ultra runner is give it time. Too many people, like, they might have followed the journey or see what Ned's doing and they think that's awesome, I want to get out there and do it, but you have to give it time. Like, in his case, it's been years. In my case, it's been years. And that's what it takes. It truly is years. And I couldn't have run around Australia without Cairns-to-Melbourne, without the 200-miler, without 24-hour races. All of these things that I've done have built that internal belief, but not just my mindset. They've truly built my body to be capable.
Yeah, well said. Have you met Ned?
Haven't, no.
Neither have I. I think we should try to tee that up. I imagine you guys would have a great yarn together. I mean, I think you should really enjoy talking to each other. You'd be the only guys in Australia that would understand what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, you'd actually be talking the same language.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some questions here from the Aces. I'll go to them. Sammy Harkin, what shoes did he run in and what can he share about choosing them? So you obviously said that, the Ultra.
Ultra, but at the same time, everyone is different. So we spoke about how I've got a wide foot, therefore, Ultra is better suited to me. Oka as well, being a bit wider, but something a bit more narrow like Nike is not so good for me. So everyone's different, but also depending on how you run. So if you're more of a heel striker, then you want to get a shoe that has more of a heel, like the Asics Kayano, for example. Or if you're more of a forefoot striker, it changes again. Some people roll in, some roll out. My advice to that question would be go to a running store, a specialized running store. For example, in Melbourne, there's the Running Company. In Sydney, there's Pace Athletic. Go to these stores. They will give you a running analysis on a treadmill and they'll see how you run and they'll tell you what shoe you should be running in.
Nice. Same bloke, Sammy Harkin, great man from Perth. What can he share about the difference between long distance and extreme distance? It's a good question, actually. What is considered long distance and then when does it tip into extreme?
Well, I think it's really extreme, probably 100 miles and up. 100K is obviously a huge distance as well, but it's becoming more popular, more common now.
It's not extreme.
I don't know. It depends.
Extreme needs to break you.
Yeah, I'd say extreme is 100 miles and up, but I think like everyone is different. I've never been fast. I always joke to people about like I stopped playing footy in the under-19s because I'd get run down holding the ball all the time. I've always been more naturally geared to the longer stuff, the slower stuff, and I've found strength in that. So where other people, would be quicker over 100K, maybe they're starting to slow down over the 100 miles, whereas I'm maintaining, and then same again for 200 miles. So, there's a big difference with those events, and obviously you can't run that fast, you can't run that hard in a 200 mile or an extreme run. So your strategy and everything is really important as well.
I was just thinking back to my question at the start. You said you put on all this weight after you were finished. Did you not? What did you do once you're finished? I probably should have, before we go to these questions, let's go back. You're running to the MCG. Can you just explain that day and then what you did for the next week? Because I know you ran, I think you had that run in Tassie, but did you enjoy the moment? Did you sleep for a week? What did you do?
Yeah, look, so the reason I did Tassie, when I set the goal back in 2018 as a youthful 20-year-old, I didn't know that Tasmania wasn't a part of the record. So I always just wanted to do Tassie. It's obviously part of Australia and it was part of my run. I wanted it to be a part of my run, but I learned once I met Dave, who was the record holder, that he only did the mainland. So I had to make a decision, do I do Tassie or do I not? And I wanted to do Tassie, but therefore it was separate because it's not a part of the mainland and part of the record attempt. So I finish on Thursday, the 22nd of August at the MCG. It was 166 consecutive days and I'm broken, but I'm on such a high that I barely feel that, to be honest. I spoke about how I've had the foot pains since Northern Territory. That was still there, but I'm just in the moment and just loving it. And obviously to be able to actually make it happen was unreal. So I finished on the Thursday. By the Monday night, I'm on the Spirit of Tassie. And by Tuesday morning, once the Spirit of Tassie docks, off I go and start running from Devonport. So look, it was... Looking back, I don't know if I would change it because I still got to have a great experience, still went down to Tasmania, met some great people, raised some more money, had an experience where my brother was support crew as well, which was nice. But looking back, my body was not ready for that and it fucking broke me.
And you deserve to celebrate, mate. You should have, I'm just thinking for you, you probably should have had a big party.
Yeah, look, we sort of did. So I finished on the Thursday and then we had an event on the Saturday night at the Vermont Eagles, the old footy club and had a fundraising night and party there. But, at the same time, I'm getting ready to go again.
Yeah, you can't have a beer.
No, exactly. I had a couple, but yeah, I had to be into it. So it was... I don't know. Like, again, looking back, I don't know if I'd do it differently. I probably would.
Well, that's the question here. Sean Riley, 14. Sean, what would you do differently if you had to do it again?
Yeah, like...
Just while we're on the topic.
Well, with Tassie, I probably, if I'm being honest, I probably would do it differently. I would love to still do Tassie. I believe it's part of the run. But also in my mind, I've got together all these logistics like the motorhome as a hire and stuff like that. I'm not going to have that forever. So I have to, if I want to do Tassie, I had to do it then and there.
Yeah.
But my body really wasn't ready. And one of the big values that I have is, once you reach the top of the mountain, don't stay there, because that's not why it's not why you got there. It's like Goggins talks about this. You've put in the hard work. It's your values that have got you to that point. Don't live there and think, cool, I've done that now. I don't need to do anything hard ever again. But to do it just so soon after was so much. So for me, that's who I am. I wanted to get back to, okay, let's go again. I love this sport and I'm back out there, but it definitely was premature. So to that question, I wouldn't do Tasmania so soon after. Other than that, what would I change? In terms of the run and everything that I felt like I had control over, not a lot. I feel like we nailed it. I mean, broke the record by 11 days and it was special to be able to pull it off so well. But in terms of marketing it, definitely, like you spoke before about a lot of people don't know about the journey. I think that we sort of missed there and like we did our best. I'm trying to always find people who can support in different areas of life. And like I would have loved to have raised more money. I'm proud of what we did, but I would have loved to reach more people and raise more money.
I think the doco will be bigger than you think though.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you filmed every day, didn't you?
Yeah.
Who filmed it all? Because it was really well done.
Yeah, we had Fordham Media as one of the big sponsors who filmed. They did part of it, and then we had different videographers as well. There was a part where from the Northern Territory or from Darwin through to Broome, we didn't actually have the videographer. Again, I was like weighing up resources the whole time, so. It's tough. Like I'm a young bloke having a crack. And basically to be able to get to the point of running around Australia, I'd saved a lot to do this run as well, but I'd also done the Cairns-to-Melbourne run. I'd put a lot into this run where I needed support from others, but could only stretch myself so far. Didn't realize that was going to be the most beautiful part where we needed someone. And that was probably it was the only part of the run where we didn't have a videographer. But I'm sure through
what
iPhone
days
stuff.
are they?
I hit Darwin day 71 and then I hit Broome day 94.
Okay, so you only missed 23 days.
Yeah,
days.
Exactly.
That's okay.
And we'll still be able to get the iPhone vision through that for Doco.
Sure.
So, and I think people like that too, like the iPhone selfie videos and stuff.
They just need something. They just need something.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just picture this. You won't have to do reenactments. You have footage, but then you've got the sit down, interviews and talking about it. And I reckon the doco will be massive.
Yeah.
Don't rush the doco. I haven't seen the doco. I'm sure you're not rushing it, but I just think the doco will work.
Yeah.
It's a global doco.
Nah, thanks, man.
Because everyone knows where Australia is, and I don't think many people have run around their country.
And people don't realise how big Australia is too. It's something that, like, as a 20-year-old, I've come up with this goal. I'm like, yeah, I can do that one day. I reckon I can do that. If I find the right people to help me, then let's give it a crack. But you don't realize until you're out there how big it is. It's funny. Sometimes, like, when you're talking to people, obviously a lot of people holiday around Australia in a caravan. And so often when someone meets me, I won't tell them I've done the run. I just say I've been around Australia before. Like, oh, how quickly did you do that? I'm like, oh, just under 6 months. Like, geez, you went a bit quick, didn't you? Like, it's better to do it over 12 months or so. And then I tell them that I was running.
That's nice, but I thought like pickup line of yours. I think that'd work all right. 6 months running around Australia, it's crazy. Yeah, and they're saying it's too quick without a car.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I think the doco will be awesome, and I can't wait to see it. But as I said, I wouldn't be rushing that one because I think, as I said to you at the start, I remember chatting to my business partner about you. And that's when I started following. He actually got me onto you about it. And he's like, you should get Shawnee on the pod. And I was like, yeah, I've been following. I'll wait till he finishes. And then when you did, obviously you're Tassie and you're not from Melbourne. And I was just watching it going, how's this not got more traction? Was one of the first things I thought, because I watched, every day. And I just think, you think about every person that runs in Australia, just stay in Australia for now, and how far they run. And how far they can run till they complain.
Yeah.
And then they compare that to one day's effort for you, back to back for 158 and 14 hours. I won't cut you short. I mean, seriously, there's just so many lessons to learn, the high perform, even organising it all as well, logistically. There's a lot of brain power in there. It's not just all, just guts and glory. You've had to map this out and be really strategic. There's a lot it's great that you're doing keynote stuff. I can only see that picking up as well. But yeah, I just think the doco will be really, really good.
And something that I've never shared before, but obviously being such a small team, having a crack out there on the road, it was very much once we got going, my girlfriend Chloe and I were doing my social media. So I really didn't have spare time through the day. Like people said, well, what was your downtime? If I wasn't running alone, there was no downtime. If I wasn't running, for that time. I was sleeping, or I was in the bathroom, I was eating. That was it. So imagine that's your world for nearly 6 months. But on day 100, one of the crew members just yelled out in a video, 100 days double marathon. And there was nothing wrong with it. I don't know how it's happened, but I get it. We didn't realize till after the run. So this could explain some of it, that I had a violation against my Instagram. I had a shadow ban. So my Instagram from day 100 to 166 couldn't reach new people in the Explore, only when people would put it on their story and then seen it. So we would, like, when I saw that afterwards, I was like, oh no. But we genuinely didn't know until I had those few days between finishing at the G and starting Tassie to realize, because how we realized was people were like, why didn't you go live on Instagram when you finish at the G? But I tried to tee that up with my crew to be able to do that, and my phone wouldn't go live. We didn't know what was going on. And then we realized there was a video in day 100 that somehow got flagged from the bot on Instagram, and that's what cost us from going live at the G. So yeah, look, unfortunate, but it was just part of it. Like, it, for whatever reason, happened, and it's like, it would have helped raise a lot more money, obviously reaching more people. But mate, I'm proud of the journey. Like, everything that I could control, it was a huge success, and I wouldn't change it.
People can go back though. You logged every day pretty much, didn't you?
Yeah.
So that's a good thing you did. You didn't miss a beat. I think you'd regret if you didn't film and have someone there.
Yeah.
So we can still get that going.
Yeah, you can. And look, like, I think that people really want to see how hard it was and the ups and downs. It's probably go to my highlights, because you can see it's all the stories from every day. And like, every day was like just so tough. I think, this probably sounds like exaggeration, but I promise it's not. In 166 days of the mainland, I would have spewed on 130 days. Like, my body was that cooked, because you try and force yourself to run a double marathon every day, something's going to happen and your body's just going to reject it. And for me, for whatever reason, I've never really been a big spewer, like playing footy or anything. It wasn't me, but out there, nothing, couldn't keep the food down.
Yeah, mate, I don't think anyone could, to be honest. I don't think I could even do it, like, a day. I honestly, it's more my muscles. Let me get the aces questions out before I keep talking shit. Balls, get him to tell the story when his girlfriend was crewing and he was smearing chafing cream.
Oh, no. Bulls is my cousin, so here we go. This will be a funny story for the
groins.
Listeners. Yeah, but there's a bit to it. So my girlfriend, obviously, she's working for the 6 months, so she could only come in here or there. She's pretty much used all her annual leave to come away. And here we are. She's come in. It's day 71, and she's met me in Darwin. And she's about to be in the crew from Darwin all the way to Broome. So for the next 3 and a bit weeks. So therefore, she said, look, we're about to rough it on the side of the A1 in the motorhome. Why don't I'll get us a hotel tonight. And so I finished running for the day, and here we are. We've got a nice hotel for the night. And
romantic hotel.
Yeah. She's ordered room service so that we can get dinner, get to bed, and all good. Basically, room service is 2 hours late. And I'm thinking, you're kidding. I'm starving. I'm starting to get angry because I'm so hungry.
Yeah.
And I'm banking on this. The crew are gone in a caravan park in the motorhome. So I don't have food there. I'm trying to replenish for the day, make sure I'm good to go the next day. There's no food. Calling room service. It eventually comes nearly 2.5 hours late. Finally have dinner. It's like 9 o'clock, and I had to be up at 4 to be running at 4:30. And so I've brushed my teeth and going to bed. I've got my hips elevated and getting into the groins with the anti-chafe, as you need to when you're doing something like this, Tommy. My girlfriend, I'm thinking she's in the bathroom brushing her teeth. She walks out and she's in a white set of lingerie. And you can imagine she's just absolutely mortified because all she sees is me with my hips elevated, getting into it with the anti-chafe cream to make sure it's good for the next day. She grabs the covers and just says, what? Like, she's completely mortified, grabs it, covers herself up. And anyway, try and calm her down and say, look, it's okay. I'm sorry that's happened, but it's okay. Anyway, long story short, start kissing her. 20 seconds later, get a blood nose all over a white set of lingerie. So it went from bad to worse.
You wouldn't even have the energy to get down and dirty, I reckon.
Nah.
Oh, well, hey, shout out to the missus for having a fair income crack.
Yeah.
I mean, the room service nightmare, the chafing, and then the blood nose. I mean, that always happens in threes, Harrow. I reckon it always happens in threes. That's a cracker. Good on you, Bullser, for mentioning that one, because we wouldn't have had that without. Here's one from Con the Barber. How much ice cream did he consume? Well, you've already touched on that, but how many tubs you reckon?
I don't know. I wish we could have kept track of something like that. We didn't. But yeah, like particularly when it was hot, nearly 2 litres a day.
Thomas Mullen, and we'll go quick fire here, but what did he listen to every day to keep him sane? Playlists and podcasts.
Yeah,
You've already touched on that, but you would have listened to mostly Combsy. You didn't have any, that's 80, how long? 12 hours of Combsy every day?
It was a lot. No, look, there was a bit of everything. But yeah, it was honestly mostly music. I had some podcasts in the years, but I was so cooked that a lot of the time I couldn't really digest it. I couldn't really understand it.
Yeah, I need a bit of frequency. I need the music.
Yeah. So it was that was the main thing.
What would your typical day of nutrition, hydration included look like on each day of the run? You've kind of touched on that. The hydration you have, and you must have been consuming a lot of water. Did you have all the Hydrolyte and all that?
Yeah, I had an amazing sponsor in Hyro who were giving the electrolytes, and I needed that. There were times where, in the Pilbara and the top of Australia, it was so hot that I was smashing down like 500 milligrams of sodium nearly every hour. Like I needed it. It was a lot, but you're just sweating so much. So, yeah.
How come you changed from barracking for the Saints to the Tigers from Lockie Jackson?
He's a mate I was telling you about. Big fan of the pod. Look, I didn't. To the listener who's confused by that, I grew up, both my parents very passionate. Mum Saints, dad Richmond. They separated at a young age. Both were taking us to games. I went for both until I was in grade 7, and my mate said, "Come on, get your shit together. You've got to pick one." And I've picked Richmond. But of course, by the time I was in year 7 was 2010. So, or maybe it was 2011 when I picked after Saints didn't win the flag, and that's why he's hanging shit on me. So,
well, mate, you've done well. I might take you to the casino because if we get black and red, I reckon you might help me because you've nailed the Tigers. What have they won, 3 or 4, whatever it is? Gee whiz. Archie Allen, I want his thoughts on the Lambros controversy. Can you help me out there? I don't understand what's going on there.
Yeah, I understand what he means. I think, can
you give context to that?
Yeah,
I don't understand.
So Lambros Army, and these guys are nice guys. I'll say that from the start. They came and ran with me. I appreciate that anyone who took the time to do that when I was on my run. They ran across Australia last year as well, and they're very new into the sport. So there's a lot of controversy and a lot of backlash from experienced runners because these guys have had a crack off pretty much 6 months of training and had to go, very much walked it across Oz, had a lot of injuries and a lot of people disagree with it. I think they're out there having a crack for charity, so good on them with that. But I will say as an experienced running coach, I've worked hard at this for years. I did a Bachelor of Physical Activity and Health Science at uni. I used to work as a PT and then also have my run coaching accreditation with ATS Australia. It does upset me when people come out when they're not qualified in this space because, like you, Tommy, you're a passionate runner. You have had experience in the system where other people might not know how to look after their body. And these guys have come out with a marathon program, 0 to marathon in 10 weeks, and that's not sustainable. That's a sure way to develop bone stress or completely burn out. And that's probably what he's referring to is either how they've done the run or the program. Good on them for doing the run. I'm in support of that. But the program, as a running coach, I was upset by that as well. I'm not someone to publicly shame them, but I did send them a message and say, hey, if you want to do this properly, go do the study.
Yeah, nice. Well said. And thank you, Archie. Abes, here we go. During the world record, was there a mental routine he had to tap into each day for the motivation?
I did listen to a lot of Goggins. Genuinely love his work. I think that in life we have mentors who we're lucky enough to meet and some that we may never. And Goggins has been huge inspiration for me. Just went through a lot of hard shit and obviously went on to do what he's done. And I tapped into a lot of his teachings, the cookie jar, which was reminding yourself of all the hard things you've already done before. Sort of spoke about that, but that was the biggest thing mentally, knowing that when I was on all fours that I could get up and keep going. So, I think that the biggest thing, I had a bit of a mantra as well. I had fun with it, giddy up was my saying through the run. And that's something now as a speaker, my message is giddy up and level up your life. And that's because giddy up just gave me energy. It's sort of like how people have that alter ego. I don't know. It energized me and it energized the team. But in terms of like something specific, there was no real routine. It was just reminding myself of all the hard work that I've done and breaking it down every single day.
Love it. How on earth did you avoid shin splints? My legs are cooked after 40-kilometer weeks.
Yeah.
Jay Tolst.
Yeah, well, Jay, I think the biggest thing is give it time and you can get there. Like, as I mentioned, this has been 6 years to build up to this. But like early days back in 2018, I never really had bad shin splints, but I had hip flexor issues. So there's a lot of reasons that shin splints can come about, and it could be that you just don't have the strength. So take the time, put the strength work in the gym. It can be running form. So I would suggest that he go and see a running coach who's experienced in that running technique, because like that can be a big part of it too. As well as then just understanding training loads and progressively overloading. So there's several factors. Shin splints could also be due to footwear as well. So I can't really pin it to one thing, but honestly, Jay, just give yourself time and you'll get there.
Love it. Did you ever, this is from the oven, did you ever seriously consider giving up?
Yeah, and I want to preface that because it was Tasmania when my body was so fucked. Like during the run itself, no.
You'd already ticked off.
Yeah, ticked off around Oz. And I think like it was so hard, and I want to be honest with that because people can see that I've left those posts up. In Tasmania, I pretty much did pull the pin, but then got back out there, thankfully, to my girlfriend who was like, mate, I don't want to live with you in 5 years' time if you are going to think that you couldn't do it, like you pulled the pin. But to explain it to people, like I'm not someone to quit on anything, and I can't really explain how much pain I was in, how cooked my body was. Like it was 166 days of mainland of 84K a day average. To then only have a few days in between, which I thought was going to be a good thing. I needed to do it logistically to get the motorhomes down to Tassie and stuff. But when the body starts to think, okay, we're done now, and pack it in, and then you get going again. Basically, I started in Tassie. I did a 90K day. I started way too hot. An 80K day the next day. And by day 3, I had nothing. I was unbelievably unwell. I was also like, just could barely move. I was in so much pain with my foot and I couldn't really see a way out. And I want to share that because as a running coach, time to time, people will have a DNF in a race, and that is fucking hard. When you put so much into your training to prepare for something and then you don't finish for whatever reason, that's really hard. And I've never DNF'd a race. But if this Tasmania run was not how it is, where it's like, you spray the ground, you can come back the next day, I would have DNF'd if that was a normal race. So I have compassion for people in that, and I know how that feels because that sucked. But ultimately, my girlfriend had a real honest chat with me. I looked myself in the mirror and was like, this is not who you are. Get back out there. This is going to suck, but get it done. And I went to Hobart, which was where Tassie was Devonport to Hobart and back. And my plan was always with Tassie up and back. And I went to Hobart and then turned around and got it done.
Extreme. It's extremely well done. I can't, as I said, I'm listening to you talk about giving up in Tassie. I mean, it's just, I can imagine the mind being at MCG kind of saying you're done. You know, it's amazing when you can smell the roses a little bit, but you have to get on the, on the boat and get over to Tassie, which is not like, how long does that take as well? It takes.
It was overnight, the ship.
It's not too long. Yeah.
No,
but still, it's up and go again. You're like, come on, I've done all that. So I can only imagine the mind. Mate, I've got you a present here from our friends at Rick's Eyewear. These are called the Cali in Smoke.
Mate, thank you.
So whack them on, mate. I want to ask you a question. And again, anyone out there that wants a pair of sunglasses this summer, head online to rickseyewear.com.au, use the discount code ACES, and you'll be looking like Shawnee in the Calis there in the smoke. Mate, what was the, if you were to finish up with the missus, put the cream away, get the lingerie out. Where's the one place in Australia after running around it, you'd take the Rixies with you and just perch up for a week?
Honestly, would love to get back to the Kimberley. There's a town there, Kununurra.
I've been there before, Kununurra, yeah.
Mate, stunning, I think. Or Broome, probably Broome actually, coming back to that. Because with Broome, like, I didn't even get to see Cable Beach. Everyone talks about, so like how Broome worked with the run was I ran into, there was a point where Dave turned around. So when you're trying to do a run around Australia, it was very much try and follow the person's route before me. He went to Simpson Beach and there was a clear turnaround point at Simpson Beach. Hit that beach, turn around and then get back on the A1. So it was sort of how it all worked. I went into Broome, back and then headed towards Port Hedland. But yeah, Broome being so quick in and out, I'd love to get back to Broome. I think great place to chill and yeah, put these on.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. Well, yeah, I've been there before. It's a beautiful spot.
Yeah.
Cable Beach is massive and a lot of people just get their four-wheelers out and driving down the beach and perch up. There you go. Well, as I said, if you want to get a pair of sunnies, get online at ricksower.com and look like Shawnee. You're rocking the Callies, which are brand new, a little bit edgy, classy, and premium, and you'll be able to get a discount there with Aces. Mate, thanks so much for jumping on the pod. I feel like I've asked every question. I don't want to leave this. I feel like I don't want to get in the car now and go, far out. Why didn't I ask that one question? So is there, before I round it out, I just love you to tell us where we can support you, what your plans are next, and how people can book you as a keynote speaker.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. If people want to do any of those things, follow me. The journey is Sean Bell Runs on Instagram or booking me for a keynote or working with me for run coaching, seanbellruns.com.
Love it. So we'll put that in the show notes. You flick that to me after this. We'll get that all in the show notes, guys. So whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to this as an audio podcast, hit the show notes and you'll easily be able to check that one out. Mate, thanks so much. And I guess on behalf of everyone that's watched, just thank you for sharing all your content and I guess daring to dream and to run around Australia and to not give up. It's a very gritty performance. It's one of the most inspiring things you'll see. I think, as I said, we mentioned Ned Brockman, we see you, and there's a lot of other people that are doing some cool stuff. But I'm really looking forward to the doco. And as I said, I don't want you to rush that because of that little ban you got on socials that didn't let you explode like I thought it should have. I reckon it definitely will. And you deserve everything that comes your way because it's effort like you've never seen before. And if you know anything about sport or the body and what it can actually do, well, you know it better than anyone because I just think what you did was unbelievable. And I always think about our own. You know, I used to play professional sport and we do 15Ks in the middle of heat and preseason and think that was tough. The fact that you're doing like 5-6 times that every day and backing up, it's just crazy, man. So thank you so much for jumping on the podcast, mate. I really appreciate you being so open and honest and telling everyone your story. To everyone out there, thanks so much for your support. I hope you really enjoyed this podcast. I certainly did. I almost forgot to ask a question 5 times because I was just sitting there in awe. But yeah, thanks again, mate, for coming on.
Thanks, Tommy. I appreciate it.
Cheers, guys. We'll see you next week on Tommy Talks. Aces, I know that's the end of the show, but here's a shameless plug for Ricks. It doesn't come without great value. Use our discount code ACES to get 20% off site-wide on us. And don't be worried about shopping eyewear online. We'll give you our 90-day free return policy just in case they're not the perfect fit. Head over to rickseyewear.com.au and find your fit today.
You need your bodyguard to be quick. And Gaz is as quick as they come. Still, he's not as quick as a PointsBet app where I can place my same game multi before he's had a chance to even... We'll call that a draw.
It's never been quicker to piece together an NBA same-game multi with PointsBet.
Memories.
PointsBet. Built different. You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.